Welcome once more to Dháre's Dosage. I'm Dháre, and today we are on day 18 of 21 of our Absolutely Authentic series. So I know that I've talked quite a bit in prior videos about our emotions, about recognizing our emotions as very much a part of us and our experiences here as beings on this planet. I talked about the need to process them and not allow them to become stored in our body, and to realize that they are in fact a form of intelligence and a form of guidance that we can use as signals and tools to help us along our path and our journey if we learn to work with them in a proper way, so to speak. So with that being said, I thought that it would, excuse the background noise, I thought that it would make sense to actually go into some concrete ways that I've utilized that I'm sure will be helpful for you, at least one, if not all of them. Just some concrete ways that you can use to help process and work with challenging emotions. All right. So I have 3 ways that I will be sharing with you today. 2 I've gathered from teachers or professionals out there that have been useful for me on my path and my journey. And then the last one is one that I've made up, utilizing the 4 natural elements of our world. So we are going to go ahead and hop right in. All right. So the first one I'll start off with is a technique that's called releasing emotions with essential oils. So this is derived from a book called, what is it called? Releasing Emotions with Essential Oils, I believe. I really don't want to stop this recording. I'm pretty sure it's called Releasing Emotions with Essential Oils. The author is Dr. Carolyn Mein, M-E-I-N. So if you Google or search that, you will very easily find that book, Releasing Emotions through Essential Oils or with Essential Oils, Dr. Carolyn Mein. So the way that this process or technique works, well, let me just give you a general overview of what the book goes into. So she very much goes into the science behind why this technique actually works, and then she goes in depth into the process of how to utilize it. But I'm going to give you a quick general overview so you know generally, what the technique is and if it's something that you're interested in exploring further. So basically, we have a system in our body, a part of our brain called the limbic system. Okay, it consists of a few different organs in the brain, like the amygdala, the hippocampus, the hypothalamus. But basically, that area of the brain, that our limbic system, is what's considered the emotional hub of our body. It's also responsible for creating and storing memories, and it's associated with the sense of smell. So when you smell something, immediately it hits that limbic system in your brain. And so that's why smell is very much associated with memory. You know how when you smell certain things, it can take you back to a certain place. So whether it be in childhood or a certain family member, or maybe a certain ex or a certain friend, or just a certain event or a certain time in your life. You realize that, right? How scents very much trigger certain memories. That's why, because they have the same association, the area in the brain, that emotional strong center, and then that center that deals with forming memory. So that's generally what the limbic system is in a body and one of its major functions. So the way that this technique works with releasing emotions with essential oils, again, I'm just going to give you the short version. Feel free to dive in further if it sounds like something that interests you. But what you're doing is you're allowing yourself to feel whatever negative, so to speak, or low vibrational emotion that you're feeling. You allow it to come on, you feel it, and you choose a specific essential oil and you smell it, and you allow yourself to smell that oil, feel that emotion, you're breathing with it, allowing it to be. And then what you're going to do is you shift to the opposite emotion, and then you smell the essential oil even further. So you're working to reprogram your brain to, instead of going to that negative emotion, when you smell the scent, you're reprogramming your brain to go with that more higher vibrational positive emotion. And then you end the session with a certain affirmation. So in the book itself, it's, like I said, it's very detailed. She lays out countless emotions. There's a specific oil or different oils that you can use that go along with those emotions. And then also what's cool is with all the emotions that are laid out, it's laid out the opposite of that emotions. And then not only that, but she provides some affirmations that you can utilize to reinforce those emotions. So that's generally how it works. There are some different aspects of part to it, like something called access points, where you can place the oil on certain spots of your body, certain areas that are linked and tied to certain emotions. So it's a very valid technique, and I encourage you to check that out if you're, if that sounds like something that you're into. Again, it's called Releasing Emotions with Essential Oils. I'm pretty sure that's the title, Dr. Carolyn Mein. So that's the first one that I've utilized. I encourage you to. The second one is one called the Warrior Heart Practice. The Warrior Heart Practice. Now, this method is developed by a teacher named Heather Ash Amara, and she is the leader of a movement called Warrior Goddess Training. Now, I first came into Warrior Goddess Training in my earlier mid-20s. I first read the book Warrior Goddess Training. She has a few different ones in the series, but the book is very much about coming into yourself as a woman and embodying both aspects of yourself as a warrior and as a goddess. So when Heather Ash Amara is talking about the warrior energy, she's referring to the masculine energy, which is really that energy of driving, of force, of, progression, progress, things like that. And then on the goddess side, that feminine energy is referring to the softness of flowing in line with nature and in life. And what's cool about it is that she very much lays out that, we're not necessarily meant to be 50-50. It's not necessarily meant for each of us as women to be 50% warrior, 50% goddess. Another word that's associated with the warrior energy is intent. Think of that intent, that drive, that action, that getting things done. And then again, the goddess as the flow, as the intuition, more of that realm. But each of us as women are going to be made up of a different percentage of both of those qualities and aspects. Maybe you're like kind of 70% goddess, 30% warrior, and that's your natural energetic makeup. Or maybe you're a little more on the warrior side and your natural balance is like 60 warrior, 40 goddess. It's not necessarily going to be a 50-50 split for each person. And then also that may shift for you at different times in your life, depending on where you are, depending on what's necessary, very much depending on what you're doing and what your intent is in each moment, whether that be the day, over a period, say a week, a month, a year. It's about finding the fluidity and the balance and what makes sense for you. So that's generally what Warrior Goddess Training is about. But specifically, the Warrior Heart Practice is a technique that she developed to help us process difficult emotions. So I'm going to get into an overview of the Warrior Heart Practice. So basically what the Warrior Heart Practice is, there are 4 chambers or 4 rooms, 4 chambers that you're going to go into. Not literally, but figuratively speaking, all right? So the first chamber that you're going to go into is called the feeling chamber. And then you go into something called the story chamber. And then you go into the truth chamber. And then lastly, you go into the intent chamber. All right, so I'm just going to walk you through those. So first, when you enter the feeling chamber, you're allowing your mind and your body, your being, you're allowing yourself, your whole self, to just feel what it is that you are feeling in that moment. Just let the emotions flow, nothing held back. Let it go, let it flow, let it go, let it flow, let it come on. Be honest, be real. This practice you can do in your head. It's also helpful to write out. You know, when you're working with these chambers, you can visualize. That's something that she lays out in the book in the practice. You can visualize a room as if you're going into a feeling room. And then this is your sacred private space where you're allowing these emotions to come on and, you know, be dispensed and come out of you. So that's the feeling chamber. And then after you've gone through the feeling chamber, you work your way over to the story chamber. So you ask yourself, okay, what stories am I actually telling myself about these feelings that I'm having? You know, again, this is no space for filtering. When you've entered the story room, let the stories flow, okay? And I'm also going to give you an example. I was trying to decide whether or not I wanted to do this, but I think it could be useful for you because I actually just went through this process last night with something I was dealing with. So after I do an overview, I'm going to show you an example of how to use it. So you've gone through your feeling chamber. You felt what it is you're feeling. You worked your way over to the story chamber. You let yourself know, okay, what stories am I telling myself about this? And then you work your way to the truth chamber. So now you have to assess, okay, what's actually true in this situation? What is true for me right now? Even if it's the smallest thing, like say you're overwhelmed by the emotions in the story, even if your truth in that very moment is, I'm breathing, you know, I'm alive, I'm healthy, what have you, whatever it is, what is the truth for you in that moment? And then lastly, you want to set an intent. Okay, now what is my intent? And basically the intent is, where is it that you want to put your energy and your focus going forward, you know, rather than being stuck and trapped in those emotions that you were feeling and the story that you were telling yourself behind the feeling. And then really the last step is to work your way back through the forward chamber after processing. So if you've gone through your feelings, through the feeling chamber, you've gone through the stories, laid it all out that you were telling yourself, and then you faced the truth and brought the truth to the foreground, and then you laid out the intent of where you want to put your focus going forward. Now with that intent and clarity in mind of where you want your energy and focus to be, work your way back to the truth. Okay, again, what is the truth? Work your way back to the story. Now that you have that truth in mind, you can tell yourself a new story about the situation, right? And now lastly, back to the feelings. Okay, what is my emotional state at now that I've gone through this process? All right, so as promised, I'm going to take you through an example of how to use this. All right. Again, I know I always say this, but absolutely authentic series. So I think it's in the best interest of everyone here just for me to be raw and real. I can't handle that sweat. All right, here we go. So last night, I just had some sadness come over me. Okay, I was dealing with sadness. I recognized it for what it was pretty quickly when I started feeling it. Specifically, what I was having some sadness about was my departure and split of the family that I was starting to build. As you know, or you will know if this is your first video, I left my partner and father of my child last month. I had to, okay? I won't go into any details there, but that is what it is. All right, so I was starting to feel sad about it, not because I felt like I made the wrong decision, because I very much recognize and know that I made the correct decision and the one that's best for me and my children in the long run. But I was feeling sad and loss and defeat because I felt like, like I said, I was just going through this last night in my head, so I'm just going to do my best to recount it for you. But anyway, I was feeling like I lost that potential of having, you know, that nuclear family, you know, being able to raise children with me as a mother, their father. And so I felt defeated, you know, like I had lost something, or like I lost not a game, but like, you know, like I lost, you know, like I didn't win by choosing to step away. That's what I was feeling, and it was making me sad. So those were the feelings that I was processing. So then I went into the second chamber, okay, which is the story chamber. And so I was asking myself in my head, okay, what stories am I telling myself about these feelings? And the stories I was telling myself is that mostly like, I'm a failure, I'm a failure because I sincerely thought that I was going to be the one in my family to break that cycle of split parent households and, kind of be that glorious one to have mom, dad, and child and, be able to raise it in that ideal scenario of having a nuclear family. So I felt like I had failed, myself and my children and even my family in a way, because I'm, just being real, I felt like I had something to prove, so that was a story I was telling myself, that I was a failure. Another story I was telling myself is that I was making my life more complicated than it needed to be by choosing to depart from a man that was fully providing for me financially. What else was I telling myself? I was telling myself that I didn't know how long or could take a long time for me to get reestablished and on my feet. The other story I was telling myself is that it would probably take a long time to, find someone else, another rightful match and mate that in the future I could, potentially grow my family with and raise my children with. So these were all the stories that were circulating alongside those feelings that I just had to be honest with myself about and let myself think about and out. And I did actually take it to the journal after, just for documentation's sake. But first I just let it happen and let it flow. During the feeling chamber, I let the tears flow. I let the feels feel. And then the story chamber, I was real. I was digging. I was diving. All right. And those were the stories that I pulled out of that sadness and defeat. So after I went through the first chamber of feeling, and then I went through the stories, then I went to the truth, which is a third chamber. And so that was time for me to get real. And the truth was, dismiss that message there. The truth was, I was not cheating myself and I did not lose. The truth was, I would lose if I had stayed in that situation because it was very much hindering me from becoming the best woman it is that I can be. The truth was, again, there's certain things that I'm not going to share for the sake of privacy of this other person. But the truth was that it was a toxic relationship. I'll keep it as simple as that. That was the truth, is that it was a toxic relationship. And the truth was that raising children in a toxic relationship is by no means an ideal scenario. It's by no means a healthy scenario. And it's by no means what's best for my children. And by no means what's best for me. All right, so that's the truth. Another truth. The truth is, I don't know how long it's going to take for me to get to a place where I feel comfortable and on my feet. But I don't have to assume that it's going to be a long time. But the truth is, I do not know a specific time. That's truth. Another truth in terms of finding a rightful partner. Reality is, I don't want a partner right now. All right, because where I'm at now, I'm very much, I feel like, being 30 and experience what I've experienced, I know what it is that I don't want and what I don't need in a partner. But more importantly, I know what it is that's within me that's caused me to attract certain types of people and to end up in certain kinds of scenarios with those people. I finally come to that realization within myself. So the truth is that at this phase, all I want to do is make sure that those things get healed. Now that I have clarity of them, make sure that those things get cleared up, healed up, and processed completely, so that when the time does come for me to have a partner, I'm at a frequency and rate where I'm just naturally attracting someone else who's also in a healed space, who also truly knows himself. And so that when we come together, we're coming as two healthy, generally healed adults that are there and going to be there for each other to further process things that may come up for us within our lives, within ourselves. But really what I want is someone who's a vibrational match to me. And so, but in lay of that, there's a certain vibration and that I myself am seeking to achieve and work toward. So the truth is, I'm not even ready for that. That's reality. And what else? I think that covers the truth about the feelings and the stories that I brought up and addressed. All right, so then after that, I went into the last chamber, which is the chamber of intent. So where is it that I want to put my energy and focus? So Heather Ash Amara recommends that you choose like a single word or single words to claim as your intent, because that way it brings it into a very concrete focus. So for me, what my intent were calmness, peace, and clarity. My intent is to remain calm, remain at peace with my decision, not beating myself up. Again, I don't have any regrets about the decision because I have 100,000% clarity that that's the right one for me. But then also clarity in the sense of being able to focus on my next steps to move ahead. So those were my intent words: peace, calmness, and clarity. And that's what I wanted to hold on to. So that was me working my way through the 4 chambers. And then it was time to work my way back. So with those intents in mind, I go back to that 3rd chamber, that chamber of truth. The truth is, I am healthy, I am whole, I am already clear-minded about where I am, about where I was, and where I'm going. That's the truth. That is the truth. And that's the one that I need to hold on to. And then the story is, I won't say I made mistakes, because I very much feel that challenging things that happen to us in life are meant to happen to us for a reason. And those reasons are to extract lessons from us and make us stronger people. So my story is, I was a woman who made some decisions that made my life challenging. But because of those challenges, I have had lessons that I've gleaned and that I'm able to make myself stronger from, and then help other people that I reach and that I encounter along my path and in my life and in my journey. It's just sweat. It's all good. All right. So that's the new story. That's the new story. And I'm not a failure. I'm just a person. I'm not a failure. I am a person, a learning and growing person. So that is a story that I choose. And then back to the feeling, where it was that I was able to work myself back. Instead of feeling sad and defeated, I really just felt calm. I very much felt calm and neutral. And what else? Yeah, I just felt okay. I just felt okay. I no longer felt defeated and sad and down. The tears had stopped at that point, and that came from that clarity itself. I'm sorry, that came from that clarity that I had the intent and that I put out for, and then I walked my way back through those chambers. So again, that was just, me just, getting real with y'all about how I was able to utilize the warrior heart practice. So if it's something that you want to dive further into, that's pretty much how it is. But if you're a bookworm like me and you want to actually read it, that's actually the title of the book as well, Warrior Heart Practice. Okay. So the last technique that I will share with you, this is one that I made up. And it's basically, I'll just call it an elemental release. I didn't really have a title for it, but that just came in my mind. So elemental release. So what you're going to do is choose one of these. If you're working with the difficult emotions, you're going to choose one of these. Now, you all know that we have these 4 major elements that make up all of life and basic energy here, in our world. And those are fire, water, earth, and air. Fire, water, earth, and air. So I'll start with fire because I'm a little fire being. All right. So what you can do to release your emotions with fire is get a candle, find a quiet space, have a seat, sit in front of that candle, light it, obviously, and just feel the feels, whatever it is that you're feeling. Let it come on, let it flow. Don't hold back, be raw, cry some ugly tears if you want to, but feel those feels as you're looking into that fire, sitting with the fire. Okay. And after you feel like you've gotten to a place where you've gotten it all out and let it all flow, imagine, stare very intently into that flame, and you imagine that flame burning up and releasing those emotions. Okay, imagine like just swallowing them all up and taking them away and sending them off for you. And and just say a little intent in your heart that they be transmuted into something better. All right, so that's utilizing the fire element. The way that you can utilize the water element is you could take a bath, because that's a space where you can have a lot of privacy, right? And, feel free, throw some Epsom salt or Himalayan pink salt, some essential oils, calming ones like lavender or chamomile or jasmine or, whatever, patchouli, love me some patchouli, whatever you want. Put some essential oils in there if you'd like, and allow yourself to feel the feels, just submerge in the water, sit back, relax, feel those feels, let it go, let it flow, as I always say. All right. And then when you're done and you got into a place where you've let it all out, go ahead and take out the stopper and watch that water go down, 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 down. And imagine those emotions going down into the drain and being carried away and transmuted into something better. So that's the element of water you could utilize. Earth takes something that's made from the earth, be it crystals. Doesn't have to be a particular one, whatever you gravitate towards. It can even just be a rock that you found. It could be a feather, and it could be a piece of a tree bark. Just find something that's come from the earth and hold it in your left hand. Okay, hold it tight, however you wish, and allow yourself to feel and imagine that I say left hand. I know that it's reversed, so I'm sorry if I'm saying left and I know it comes off as right to you, but I'm holding it with my right hand. This is my left hand. Anyway, so you're holding that piece of the earth, even a flower, whatever, stone, flower, rock, tree bark, holding it in your left hand, and imagine that as you're going through those feelings, imagine it going into that item, and imagine that item taking on the energy of all of those emotions for you. Just let it flow into the object. Let nature be that healer and support and friend for you, and allow it to go into that item. And then when you reach that point, once again, that you felt the feels, switch it over to your right hand, and then imagine that it is being poured out of you. So first you were allowing yourself to receive and feel the emotions, and then when you switch it over to your right hand, allow that item to be a tool in aiding you to release it outward, not to anyone in particular. You can imagine it going down into the earth. That aspect, some of these aspects are not, obviously I didn't make them up, but I just means in terms of me creating this as a process, as putting together the elemental release. But anyway, once in your right hand, imagine it being poured out of you, going out and away, being released and transmuted into something better. All right. So from the left, you're feeling, and then from the right hand, you're allowing it to release. And then lastly, the element of air. This one could be as simple as incense, if you like incense, or if you like to burn any herbs like Palo Santo or sage, or I like lavender bundles. There's a park near I live where I like to go pick lavender, and I make my own lavender bundles, but something that you can have smoke with, because smoke represents the element of air. So basically with this one, similar to the fire, hold it, wave it however you wish, but allow yourself to feel the feels again, and just watch the smoke carry it away. You know, just be there with it. Just be there with it. Let it go. Put it where you want, whether you're holding the incense or say you have an incense, it could be an incense holder. You're feeling it. And then as you watch that smoke go up, up, out and away, imagine that being those emotions that you're releasing, being carried away and transmuted to something better and no longer being held and stored within you. All right, so that's what I call the elemental release, utilizing fire, water, earth, or air, those tools to help you let things go. All right, so quick recap, the 3 methods that we discussed was releasing emotions with essential oils, reference Dr. Carolyn Mein's book for that. We then went through the warrior heart practice, reference Heather Ash Amar's book for that. And then the elemental release, reference this video for that. All right. So I really hope, I know this was useful for somebody. Okay. I know this was useful for me. And like I said, those first 2 especially came from people have been using those. All right. These are legitimate women, legitimate goddesses in their own way, in their own forms that were sent here to bring their teachings forward to help and elevate this world. But, just utilize these. Again, I didn't want to just leave y'all hanging because I'm always like, oh, let your emotions flow and feel it and all that. But you're like, how do I do that? So if you're wondering why or how, then tap into one of these methods here and see how it works for you. All right, so I know this is probably my longest video yet, but I know it's going to be one that's very much a gem and a jewel for a lot of y'all. So I am sending you so much peace and power and love, and I bid you supreme wellness. Take care.